Hello. Good morning to you, if it's morning where you live. Otherwise, maybe good afternoon, good evening, depends. Welcome. Stacy already has a question here. Will this be recorded so we can watch later? Yes. So it will be on the Lovely Commotion Facebook page under the videos tab. So awesome. I'm very excited to be talking about creating a preschool schedule. And I have come up with like 5 steps that I kind of go through in my own brain and write out on my own notebook paper to help me get there. So I'm excited to share those with you. Drop a hi and let me know you are here if you're joining me live. If you can't join me live, that's okay too. You can watch later. So drop in a hello, and I just kind of wanted to give you a quick update on school. I know many of you are not going back at the beginning of the year. I know many of you are. It's such a hard time. Here in Missouri, we are going to go back starting, at least as of right now, August 24th. And so I'm also planning to be digital in case that happens. I think all of us are kind of like in this limbo place, and it's so hard. And so I just have decided that I'm going to have to plan both. Like, I have to be ready to go back in the classroom, because if my children come in the classroom, I need to be ready. But I also feel like I need to have a plan for if that doesn't occur. So I have been working on some digital resources, even though it goes against what I love. But I know that might be a reality. So hello Ashlyn from Indiana. Hello from Chicago. Hi Karen. Hi from North Carolina. You're virtual for the first 6 weeks. Yeah. Whew. I have a feeling we might be going to that because our numbers keep rising here. So I don't know. Hi, Stacy from Ohio. Thanks for joining me. I'll go ahead and get started and jump right in. Thank you for joining me for the Create a Preschool Schedule in Just 5 Steps. So, hi, Anne. So I wanted to start by talking about class schedules. Now, to me, this is one of those like really important plans that when you put in place at the beginning of the year, it really can make or break your atmosphere, right? A lot of your schedule can make or break the student behaviors that you see. For example, let's say that you planned a 30-minute circle time at the beginning of the year for your 4-year-olds. And for some reason, they're all becoming little roly-polies and they don't engage with you for those 30 minutes. That schedule that had been set out and been executed isn't going to work because it's too long, right? And so what you put on your schedule and execute on your schedule is going to affect the behaviors you see. Like, let's say we forgot to put in a snack time during when they came to school and lunch. We're going to start seeing hungry, whiny children who need to eat, right? And so that's going to affect behavior in a negative way. Also, outdoor time, like let's say you don't have control over when you get to go outside, that time's assigned to you. Let's say it's not for, a while into your day, maybe even the end of your day. If you don't find some movement time in there, you're going to see little wiggles bursting at the seams. So going through our schedule very intentionally and almost with like a fine-tooth comb is really important, because you're looking for the issues, right? Like, the goal of our schedule is to help us make sure the behaviors we see are positive based on what we can control in our schedule, and work against those negative ones. Like, that's the goal for my schedule. Like, how can I set this up so that I'm not going to see behaviors more from the schedule itself and from our daily flow than I would other things, right? There's always other things that contribute to that, but I want to make sure with my schedule that I'm not creating more havoc on myself and creating more stress on my children, right? So over the years, I kind of realized that I kind of go through this process every year, because every year we get a new recess time or outdoor time, and we get a new time for when we have our special class time. So I have to always go in and redo it, which is fine because I like going back in and doing that work and really seeing what will work for us that year and learning maybe from the last year and things like that. So I found that I actually kind of go through this step-by-step process. And so I figured it might be helpful for other teachers too when they are creating their schedule, whether this is like, your first rodeo, or maybe you've been doing this for a while. Maybe you can gain some insight from what I do as well. So for the steps, there's 5 of them. The last one is incredibly optional. And at the end of this video, I also wanted to show you just a way that you can edit your own schedule in Adobe Reader with a free schedule I have for you. So also in the comments, you will see a link to the workbook. There's a workbook that goes along with this. I have to be able to sit down and write it out, right? That's just my personality. And so I have to be able to write and move things around and have things on paper. And so this workbook made sense to me. And so I created it available for you too. And so there's a link up in the description of this post too. So let's go ahead and get started with step number 1. First, I want you to ask yourself the key questions. So key question number 1 would be, how long are you with your students? And are they part-time or full-time, right? So obviously that's going to determine how much you can fit in a day, right? I teach 3 days a week from 9 to 1:30. So what I can get done in a day may look different than a teacher who is teaching the same students 5 days a week, right? Obviously, you have to judge your expectations or manage your expectations based on how often you actually have the students in your care. And then I want you to think about the age of your students. And this will come up more in step 3, but being intentional about this is how old my students are. And if I were looking at a sample schedule for a 5 class that's getting ready to go to kindergarten, maybe a transitional kindergarten class, and I am working with the 3s, that's not going to be as helpful to me as an example because my children have different needs at that age. So just keeping those things in mind. And then the last question is what I really want you to take an action step and write down which events or activities do you do in your day that are absolutely mandatory. You have to do them. There's no way around it, right? This, of course, is lunch. If you have lunch, if you're more of a full-time program or a full-day program, you're going to have lunch. You may have nap time. That's a mandatory thing. Outdoor time is a mandatory thing. Your special classes may be a mandatory thing. So what are those things for you that are mandatory or even set by your center or school, right? List those out. Those are non-negotiables. You've got to put them in the schedule, and sometimes you've got to put them in the time slot that they're given to you. If you're given this time for lunch or this time for outdoor time, then that's got to go on the schedule before anything else. So I like to list those at the top. This is it. I've got to have these in here, and this is how long they last, right? So I would have my outdoor time. I have to go from this time to this time. So that's step 1 is just your non-negotiables. Step 2 is it important? So I want you to make a list of all the things you want to do. And this is where I always struggle because I'm always I want to try this and I want to do this and we could do this. And the reality is I'm not with my students for 4.5 hours. So I have to prune those back. So what I started doing was listing out what do I want to do in a day? Okay, so that's going to be obviously your large group time, your circle time, maybe it's even story time, a quiet reading time. Maybe you have a quiet reading time you want to do. Maybe you want to do a whole group reading time at the end of the day. What are these things you want to do? And so putting them in there. And also to mention too, free play could be put here, or for me, actually, it's a non-negotiable. It would go in step 1, their free play time. I don't necessarily have a assigned time that I want it to be, but I have how much I want that to be, the time frame, the time span, right? I know that at the beginning of the day, I like to do 50 minutes to an hour of free play. And so that's a non-negotiable for me. So that would go in step number 1. I forgot to mention that. But if that is something you want to try to get put in there, put it in step 2, and you can mark it as pretty important because that's how kids learn, is through play. And so you're going to decide what's important. So you have your list of all these activities you really want to do throughout the day. And I want you to number them. Start with 1 as most important and start numbering them. What do I feel like is the most important? And not just for me, what do I want to do with my children, but what is the most beneficial to them, right? And keeping those things in this list, this numerical list, is going to help you later create that schedule, because you're going to know, oh, I could fit this in here, I could fit this in here, right? So list out those activities, number them, 1 most important, all the way down. And again, this is in the workbook. So in the description of this video, there is a link for a workbook, and this walks you through each step. But I also wanted to just kind of walk you through them as well. So when you grab that, you'll be able to write all those down, start numbering them, and putting them in order. Now, step 3, I call Got Wiggles. Whoops, sorry about that. Because sometimes we have these grandiose plans and we think we can fit all this in. But the reality is sometimes we have created a time slot that's too long and creates lots of wiggles and lots of behaviors that we don't necessarily want to see. We also sometimes tend to, and I do this completely, and I have to remind myself all the time, I tend to go back to what my students were doing in May and kind of create my schedule back on that. And I have to remind myself, no, you have to go way back, right? So even if you thought that the end of the year, my children could totally handle a 20-minute circle time, and sometimes even one to go longer, that's not what it's going to look like for the beginning of this year, because they are a whole year younger than those students that we ended the year with. And so just keeping that in mind too, that your schedule may look different at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. In fact, I've actually gotten to the point where I create 3 different ones, because And I don't do them all at the beginning of the year. I make my first one based on what I think we can handle. And then as we're working through that, I create a new one that maybe expands on certain areas, changes things. And I like to do that mainly for a sub. Like, obviously in my own mind, I kind of know how long we should be doing this and I adjust it accordingly. But when a substitute comes in or when someone comes in to observe, I like to have that for them to see that this is what we're currently doing with our schedule. So that's an option too, but always just start with the beginning of the year right now, right? We've just got to get something started and ready in case we are able to go back to school full time, right? In the building, not digital. So got wiggles. So basically, I want you to think about, and I'm going to show you this here. Basically, I want you to think about how long is long enough. So you should be planning about, the average time span's about 2 to 5 minutes per year of life. So this chart kind of helps you see, like, a 1-year-old, 2 minutes to 5 minutes, right? And we've seen that. Their attention span, they're just, let me see the one thing and then go. Now, this is an average. Obviously, you're going to have children who love to come and sit with you and do things with you for much longer. So just as a general average. So if I'm got my 4-year-olds coming in, I can look at anywhere from 8 to 20 minutes. And so I like to kind of go towards the middle of that when I'm starting out. And then as you see, when they all start turning 5 at the end of the year, we can bump that up a little bit. And so this is very helpful to just really manage your own expectations on how long is appropriate for them, right? That 2 to 5 minute per year of life. And this builds on itself. And so that's why, like, seeing a 2-year-old schedule may not meet your needs for your 5-year-olds, right? And so just keeping all that in mind. When is it too long? Or maybe even can I push it up a little bit and see if they can meet me there with their attention spans. So that's the step 3 got wiggles section. So just really keeping in mind, and you'll come back to this when you reach step 4. So step 4 is planning it out. So what I want you to do is make like a list of all the time slots. And if you're using the workbook, that's already in there for you. And start it where you start your day. So like for me, it would be 9 o'clock. So I'm going to start at 9 o'clock. And I know that one of my non-negotiables from number 1 is that I want to have that 50 minutes to an hour of free play time. So I'm going to block that. And then I'm going to go back to my step 1 and go, what else do I block? Well, we were given our outdoor time of this time, so I'm going to, put that in there. I'm giving my special classes here. We're putting chapel here. And so I'm putting these things in, and I have to make 3 of these because Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are all different. One day they do chapel, one day they do a special class, and one day they don't do either of those things. So I am doing it 3 days and then compiling that all into one document. So I'm going through and I'm making a list of those time slots. I'm starting with the, obviously when they start, putting in your step 1 non-negotiables. Then you can move to your step 2 and start with your most important activity that you have labeled number 1. And so where can that fit in? And while you're doing this, you're constantly going back to step 3 going, okay, how long is appropriate? Where do I want to start the year doing this activity? How long? If it's something extremely hands-on and something extremely engaging, then maybe it could go a little bit longer. If it's something where they're asked to sit, maybe that needs to start a little bit on the lower time frame. So you're just going in and you're just plugging them all in. Where can I move this, move that? And then also to note is keeping really good track of transitions. How many times are you moving from one activity to the next? Because for a lot of children, transitions are not easy. So doing like a free play for 15 minutes, then transitioning to circle time, then free play for 15 minutes, transitioning to whole group, maybe a lot of transitions. And remember, transitions don't have to just be leaving the classroom. They also are any change in activity, any change of expectation of your children. So that would, that even changes from when we transition to wash our hands, then we transition to sit down to eat lunch, then we transition to do whatever is after lunch. And so thinking about how many there are, and if there's too many, can you just make more chunks of other things? And then also to keep, also to put into consideration how varying those activities, right? So you're not going to want to have circle time back to back with maybe a story time, because they will already be sitting on the carpet for circle time, and then you're going into story time and they're sitting there longer. And so if you find yourself in a stuck spot where you feel like you need to do that, make sure that you build in a movement activity, a song, a movement game, anything that can get some of those wiggles out as they're being asked to sit for longer than really is recommended. So keeping those things in mind. Always the transition, and also how long are we expecting them not to move their bodies in the way that they love to, right? And for me, I've got actually some sample schedules of what works for me on my blog, and there is a link in this video description as well, where you can kind of see how I've broken up my schedule over the years. They're actual real schedules that I use. They were the last 4 years of what I've done, and it is all for 4 and 5 year olds, and some of them are 2 day a week, because I did 2 day a week, and some of them are 3 day a week. And so you can kind of see what process I went through and how I really was intentional about making sure that there wasn't long periods of time or multiple times where I'm asking them to sit. So you can check out that too. So planning it out, putting all those things in. And then I want you, once you think you've got it pretty good, I want you to just leave it and walk away from it for a while and come back to it with fresh eyes, because sometimes I'll find that like when I am getting ready to print it and put it up in my classroom, I'm like, why did I put that and that there? Or, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to even schedule snack time. I'm going to have hangry kids. And so it just gives you fresh eyes. So you can go back and go, oh, what did I do? Or even pass it to like a co-teacher or another colleague in your building. Will you look at this? Will you find my loopholes? Because when you're working so hard on it, sometimes it's hard to see like, ooh, this could be an issue right here. You may want to think about that. So that's a very helpful thing to do as well. So like I had told you, step 5 is completely optional, but for some reason, I love to make things pretty, and I know a lot of you do too. And so when I put my schedule together, I always put it together in a pretty document so I can send it out to parents so they know what their child is doing while they're with me. And I also display it in the classroom. Mainly the first couple weeks for myself. I have it like everywhere because I'm starting to learn my new schedule myself. And then, of course, for anyone that comes in the room to maybe fill in for you, or even just doing an observation, they can see like what's coming next on the schedule. So I always have it up, and I always provide it to parents, whether they look at it or not. It doesn't matter, but they have it there so that they know the essentials, like when is lunch. That is always a big one. When are they eating? When are they eating snack? Right? And they really just like to get a peek into your day to see what their child is doing. So I like to give that to them. And so I make it pretty with fonts. I don't know what it is about cute fonts, but I love them. And so I like to put those out there, and maybe even some graphics. So in that workbook that's in the the description of this post, there is also, there is also down at the very, very bottom, some editable schedules. So there's some for 5 days, 3 days, and 2 days. If you go 4 days, let me know, and I can try to come up with something. I just hadn't heard of many schools or centers going 4 days. So anyhow, I wanted to show you, if you want to stick around, great. If not, that's okay too. I wanted to show you how you can very easily edit these, because sometimes that's a question on how do I use this editable thing you made. And so first, let me say you have to open it in Adobe Reader. And Adobe Reader is a free program, so no worries. You can just Google search Adobe Reader, pull it up, download it, and you can open it in this. Most likely, you probably already have it on your desktop. You are not going to be able to easily edit this on your phone or even iPad, I don't believe. I just got an iPad not very long ago, so I'm not totally for sure whether you can do it on an iPad, but on your desktop computer, you definitely can. So I wanted to share my screen for you. Let me see here. Okay. I'm hoping you can see it. Let me get rid of some of this other stuff. There we go. Okay. So if you look, this is the schedule. So this is the workbook. So when you open it up, here are your pages, just a little bit about me and how I can help you right there. And then all of these things that we just went through are in there. And here are how many hours you with your students, what ages, things like that. Here's where you can go ahead and put the events and activities in there. Is it important? What do you want in your day? And then there's some ideas down here if you get kind of stuck or you think you're forgetting something. So there's that. The Got Wiggles, the chart is in here for you. And then the planning it out, here's kind of just an example. And then there's all the pages for that. Just going to scroll past those because there's quite a few of them. And then we're on to this. So we are going to easily fill this in with Adobe Reader. So let me scroll down here. Okay, so like this is a 5-day and the fonts are already put in here and they're already ready for you to edit. So over here you can put your time frame in, like let's say 9 to 9:50. Whoop. And it already adjusts for you. And so maybe this is when we're doing free play centers. Okay. And so that's there. That's the 5-day, and you can keep going down that. Then there is the 3-day-a-week one where you can do the exact same thing. The 3-day one, so this one already has Monday, Wednesday, Friday in it. But if you don't go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, here is where you can put that in. Maybe you go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know. So I wanted to make that something you could use. So maybe you put that in there, and then you list your times over here. And then there is a Tuesday, Thursday option. And again, if you're not Tuesday, Thursday, maybe you are Monday, Wednesday. There is an option for that too, so you can fill in your own. And then there is a weekly schedule, another weekly schedule. So there's another 5-day with lots more slots if that is something that you would find helpful. So like I can just go ahead and put in here, and you can see that it's already auto shrinking and should already come up with that font in there. And so then when you print, you're not going to see these blue boxes. These blue boxes are just telling you, hey, you can type in here. Okay. So no worry there. And then you could also write it out in like a word processing type of form if you wanted to. That's another option. Okay. And so that's another option. And that is all of them. So if you find this helpful, go ahead and go sign up to download the workbook, and I will help you with anything you need help with. If you have any questions or if things aren't working for you, because sometimes technology can be a pain, but just remember, please open it in Adobe Reader because it will not work otherwise. So please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I can answer them now, and I can answer them later when we're finished. But I hope this was helpful to you, just the many things to think about when you're creating a schedule so that you can start with just the best intentions right there and already things thought out and being thorough in what your children might need and how the flow of your day can affect behavior and affect emotions, right? Also note, like many times, not many times, but I have had in the past where I've created a schedule I thought looked great, and my class of students didn't think it was so great. It was not working. Gave it, a good 2-week try, and granted, we only were there 3 days a week, and it just wasn't working. And so I had to tweak it. And so knowing and being flexible that it may not always work out the first time, even with the best intentions, but we have to start somewhere. And so if we can start with an intentional plan based off of our children's needs and the expectations that we have for them, will just be all the better. So if you have any questions, again, please let me know, and I hope you have a great Monday. Bye-bye. I quit it, but it's still up. What? No, there's not.